And it's quite a departure from Havana. This looks like a nice little slice of Americana right here. In fact, you've got the Treyarch school bus, it looks like.
This map was influenced by, those sort of sets that they would build in the desert to basically nuke as a test.
Oh, okay.
So, if you've ever seen any of the last Indiana Jones movies, for example, they have that kind of town in there, and if you ever watch any of those crazy documentaries about how to escape from Fallout, in the late 60s and early 70s, you'll see these towns, and they built these replications of these towns, and we're like, this is just too much fun, and there's so much camp here that we have to incorporate this thing in a map. And this is our fun map. This map's really just for fun.
The mannequins add sort of a campy, but also at the same time slightly eerie element.
Yeah, they're slightly creepy, and if you're playing, when you're playing without many players, if you're playing like a smaller game, like 3-on-3 or 4-on-4, you got guys will stand still next to mannequins. It's a huge issue for you. There's a sign inside this map right in front of John there, where it actually tells you if you go to the front of that sign and look at it, it'll actually tell you how many players are currently in the Nuketown at this time.
Oh, okay.
We'll try to get some footage of that. This map has a specialized RCXD car path that lets you go from one side of the map to the other in the back alley. This map features, it's got the double rainbow. This map has got, this map also has a really special surprise that we'll get to when the match is.
I feel compelled to ask about the player bursting the flames.
Yeah, well, these guys have got some flamethrowers at work here, which is one of the weapon attachments. So you're going to get toasted up pretty good. So, John, if you get toasted, don't skip that kill cam. Show everybody in the world what happened there. The flamethrower used to be a weapon, right? A first one weapon in Call of Duty World of War. And this time we stuck it as an attachment, an under the barrel attachment. So John now that he's ranked up and he has his MP5, rather than spending money on something else, it looks like he's customized his gun. Now he's got a reflex on there with probably a red dot, triple red dot. He's starting the experience of going, okay, I'm going to customize this weapon for me. What do I want on it, right? And he's still only level 5, so he's not waiting around for this stuff too long. He's also got a speed reload perk on. They're playing Demolition.
I'm in awe at this map that you guys have built right here.
Yeah, there's some sprinklers somewhere off to the side, some garden sprinklers that come up. And then, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give, just for I'm going to give you guys one giveaway just for your audience. No one's ever talked about yet. And then I'm going to leave a little bit, there's the flamethrower there, or I'm going to give you this little tidbit. You pop the heads off all the mannequins, and I mean all of them, and I mean in record-breaking time. There's a little something special for you. Takes a well-coordinated.
You're gonna have to have people. You definitely need a marathon, and you definitely need to know how to navigate your way around this map.
Yeah, you're gonna need a full team of professionals to make this happen, but that's part of the charm, right?
Definitely butterflies as well.
Yeah, of course. This is a fun little town.
So you were talking a moment ago about, we mentioned gun customization earlier, but one of the things that we're not seeing quite yet, as we're not at that level, is with the reticle customization, right? You can actually change it from a dot to other different patterns and sort of colors and things, right?
Yeah, that's right. So this is just the circle red dot, which is the default version. So in a little bit, when John ranks up, he'll have the ability to purchase different aiming reticles. So maybe you don't want a dot, maybe you want a circle, maybe you want an X, maybe you want a skull, maybe you want a smiley face. There's all sorts of different ways to configure the actual reticle that you're using. But then on top of that, you can actually change the color of the dot. So, it's always called the red dot, but it could be a green dot, it could be a blue dot, it could be an amber dot. There's all sorts of colors, and you can pick which one. And then even on top of that, we can configure the glass color. So he's using clear glass, but you can use blue and various shades and tones of glass, which depending on the map and the brightness of the map, might aid in you're targeting that position. and some of it's just purely for just showing off.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine getting dying as a result of a headshot from a guy who's using a smiley face on the roof is not the most rewarding feeling in the world.
It is if you're the guy who got the kill. So John's just finished one of the first perk pro challenges there. That's what that message was. The lightweight escape death, which means he got hurt and then had to run away. So the perk pros are like that. If you're a lightweight user, you want to move fast. One of the things you do as a fast mover is if you get in trouble, you can dodge around a corner. In fact, this is a really great map for that kind of thing because it's small. It's a really good place to try to accommodate those things. He just got poisoned by Nova gas right there. That's why his screen's all blurry. That is a type of a secondary grenade that got tossed up into the world. You can purchase that, of course. You can do it in the next game if you wanted to. And we're 37 seconds away from the big finale here. Yeah, that's a base challenge there. 25 kills. Very incremental, the challenges. 5 headshots and 25 kills, so he's doing pretty good. 5 headshots with the SMG. So those are all the challenge pop-ups and promoted. Yeah, with 2,500 level bonus right there. Yeah, this map's never been seen before. We haven't really promoted this map at all. It's a little too unique and different to really make sense for most types of game promotions or trailers that you might do. I really think that Nuketown is going to have some really large fans. I like this map a lot in private matches and with some of the private match game customization options that we have available. We like to play 1-on-1s and 2-on-2s in it with pistol shotguns only. That's a good fun experience. It'll hold up and it'll be in the playlist rotation for sort of the normal game modes, of course. But Nuketown is something special for when you're trying to really just kind of bring it down to very few players, going at it in kind of a duel environment and a dueling. That's where Nuketown really shines. It's just fun. It's just different and fun.
So yeah, talk to us about the map design in general. How do you guys try to balance the smaller maps like Nuketown versus the bigger maps like Havana was a little bit bigger, but I imagine you guys have some larger ones.
Yeah, Havana's a medium-sized map by the standards that we use, and we definitely lump maps into small, medium, and large categories. And we have 14 maps going to be available in Call of Duty Black Ops, and most of those maps are going to be in the middle range size, what we call medium maps. Medium to medium large. And those are maps that are generally designed to work in every game mode with about 12 players, right? That's kind of the target. That's the base. Right? So, if you have a magic spreadsheet of what you're trying to do, you want to get, let's call it 9 to 10 maps, and maybe, in that range right there, that medium range. And then you want at least one pretty small map. That's Nuketown, right? This is the smallest map we have. There's another small map called Firing Range. It's bigger than Nuketown, but it's in that medium to small category as opposed to purely a small map like this. And then we have some very large maps on the extremes, Crack, Array, those are very large maps. So, you generally tune the game, and again, this is, talk about game design in general, isn't really fair to game design at all, but to keep it simple, you generally want a good healthy dose of medium-sized maps, and then you want to go to the edges, couple 2, couple 3, as we like to say, large maps and 1 or 2 small maps. And that's usually the great balance for this game, what the engine's capable of, what we think the fun factor is for the number of players and the game modes that we have. We play the game lots of ways with lots of different players. And it always boils down to, man, this is the right size map, this is the right number of players for that kind of awesome experience.
And what's the process that you guys take in regards to designing a map visually after locations from the story campaign compared to just ones that totally pulled out of nowhere?
Yeah, so we got the chance to pull a lot of them in this game out of nowhere. Nuketown is totally out of nowhere.
It's not in the campaign.
Yeah, but you're still, it's still in production, right? And the game goes to particular environments. In Call of Duty Black Ops, we were actually able to get started making maps really early on. So, we had sort of this loose idea from the campaign side of things where the story was going to take us and what the environments were. We built maps in basic block shape, inspired by locales, hoping the art would be there one day, right? So when you're building this map up from scratch, I mean, this is a finished map. These are nothing but blocks. It's like playing in Legoland in a way. There's nothing to it. So we usually just try to go for a good healthy balance of something totally outside the box like this map, and then a good mix of where the story is going to be inside the game. If you're going to spend some of your story in Vietnam / Laos or Cambodia, need a couple of maps in that environment. If part of your story is going to be in the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union, you got to have a couple of maps there. So, when we're doing the initial planning, we really just are looking for good reference and trying to come up with really fun maps, and we're not overly focused on the environment yet. Right. In fact, Havana was a completely different location altogether, and it became Havana, Cuba. Here comes this care package. So maybe we get a good look at the helicopter here. This big old beast of a bird that's coming in to drop his care package. I think it'll be shot down. We've slowed it down a bit, so if it gets taken out on its way in, it'll drop its care package wherever it gets destroyed. There's a mixed reaction from the hardcore fans about care packages. I mean, why do I get a higher level kill streak for having a lower level kill streak? And it's the subject of a lot of conversation on the design team. But ultimately, kill streaks don't count towards kill streaks. So in this game, you can't just intrinsically rule through the kill streaks very fast. So I think there's some players who will never get an 11 kill streak in their life. The odds of getting a really great kill streak out of a care package are pretty low. They're sitting that way. So I don't think anybody has anything to worry about here. You won't see as much. There's good competing kill streaks to take at that level. So I'm pretty convinced that care packages, I think they have a place in the game. I feel like they're appropriate, and it's pretty satisfying when that the random number gets rolled and your time is there. Let's get the kill cams. There's a lot of different kill streaks, of course. Some of the new ones include the 2 weapons that we actually have available only from care packages, which is another good reason to have care packages, right? You don't want something like the death machine or to be something that you can equip with, right? That would be extremely overpowered and wouldn't make a lot of sense for a creative class weapon. But it makes perfect sense inside of a care package drop. So that weapon, along with the Grim Reaper, which is a score-banging, rocket launcher that's just insane. Those 2 things are weapons that you can only get from care packages. So you have an opportunity to give the player really super powerful weapons rarely, and that's a lot of fun all around. It comes up and it can be game changing, and that keeps the game interesting, right? It doesn't boil down to the same thing. That little bit of randomness inside makes it, I think, more engaging overall and keep you fresh and thinking.
Sure, a little bit of controlled randomness in an otherwise very sort of, deliberate environment.
It is really deliberate, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's designed fairly deliberately. But there's new kill streaks include, of course, everyone's favorite, the RCXD, which is the radio controlled car. There's also some work against the chopper gunner and how that works. That's very Vietnam movie influence, where you're quite literally sitting on the side of the helicopter with the gun, right, as opposed to the gun camera, right? So that's a lot of fun. There's the gunship, which is actually a pilotable helicopter, so you can actually fly it around. So there's some really new kill streaks that we think the fans are going to be pretty into. There's 11 of them. There's not too many, so it's not sort of overwhelming. They've got counters, right? There's a SAM turret, which is a tactic kill streak designed to take out air kill streaks. So, there's a good healthy balance there, and having a lot isn't really the way to win necessarily. Having you got to have a good number because the customizable kill streak feature is amazingly fun. But you gotta find a healthy dose of counters for them too, because you don't want them to be the dominant part of the game.